Imagine that you are about to delve into an ancient and profound mystery, a theme that spans millennia of tradition and spirituality. To understand what happens to the soul after death, we first need to comprehend what it truly is and how it connects to the body. From the very beginning, the Bible reveals that when God created humanity, He did not only form the body from the dust of the earth, but also breathed into it the breath of life, which gave man a living soul. This soul, in essence, is the core of our existence, the part that makes us conscious beings capable of feeling, thinking, and connecting with the divine. But what happens when this union is broken? At the moment of death, biblical and Jewish mystical tradition teaches that a fundamental separation occurs. The body, made from dust, returns to the earth, while the soul, a divine breath, returns to the Creator. This separation is the first step of a complex and mysterious journey, where the soul leaves the physical world and begins to explore the spiritual realm. However, this transition is neither immediate nor simple. Jewish tradition describes how the soul remains strongly connected to the body and the world it once knew, and this is where the true journey begins. This story, which we will explore in detail in the following parts, unveils hidden secrets about the soul's destiny, a journey known to few, but that stirs the curiosity and awe of many. Now that you have this starting point, prepare yourself to dive into the depths of this spiritual voyage, where light and darkness, peace and judgment walk side by side. After passing through the cave and encountering that indescribable light, the soul faces a decisive moment, the final detachment from the body. This is not a simple or easy process. Imagine how attached the soul is to the body, the home where it lived all its experiences, felt emotions, and built its identity. But now, something far more powerful is calling it. According to Jewish mystical traditions, the light the soul perceives is actually the manifestation of the divine presence. It feels like a profound warmth, an intense sensation of love and kindness that the soul has never experienced during its earthly existence. However, this transition is not instantaneous. At first, the soul resists. It does not want to leave the body, does not want to let go of what it knows. But the presence of this light is irresistible. It's like being wrapped in a warm embrace that soothes all fears, dissolves all doubts, and awakens a deep desire to unite with something greater. This divine light, known in tradition as the Shekinah, acts as a spiritual calling. The soul begins to realize that what awaits it is far more beautiful and fulfilling than any experience it had while bound to the body. And so, gradually, the soul lets go, accepting this invitation to a higher reality. It detaches from the body, moving toward the light. This moment is described as a peaceful transition, where the soul finally finds the freedom to exist in its purest form, free from the limitations of the material world. But not all souls make this transition in the same way. Souls that were righteous, who did good and avoided idolatry, approach this light with serenity. On the other hand, souls that strayed from the right path, even while perceiving this divine goodness, are soon repelled, following a much darker path that we will explore further. This is the beginning of the soul's spiritual journey, a journey of discoveries, judgments, and transformations. The soul now begins to understand that its existence did not end with death. In fact, it is just beginning a new chapter in a completely different realm. From the moment the soul finally detaches from the body, its journey begins to take shape. Now, it is drawn toward that light representing the divine presence, but something extraordinary happens during this process. The soul, once limited by the body, starts to experience a freedom it has never known before. At this point, according to Jewish mystical traditions, the soul gains the ability to see far beyond what human eyes could perceive. It is free from the physical barriers that once confined it, and for the first time, it can glimpse a spiritual reality that was previously hidden. You might recall Moses, who asked God to see his face, but was told that no human could see the face of God and remain alive. Now, free from the limitations of the body, the soul approaches this level of vision. This experience of spiritual expansion is beyond earthly comprehension. It's as if all knowledge, all truth about the universe, is now within reach of the soul, which finds itself in a state of pure consciousness, free from the constraints of time and space as we know them. Imagine an infinite horizon where there are no more barriers, where the soul feels completely free, able to understand the purpose of its existence with absolute clarity. This sense of expansion is so intense that it's impossible for us, still limited by the body, to fully grasp. Mystical texts describe that the soul feels indescribable relief and pleasure as it frees itself from these restrictions, reaching a level of knowledge and connection with the divine that surpasses any earthly experience. However, this state of freedom and expansion is not the end of the journey. The soul, now aware of its new reality, realizes that it is just beginning to tread a path that will lead to new challenges, judgments, and encounters. The light that drew it in is not just a manifestation of divine love. It is also the prelude to something greater and more complex, the judgment of its life and the destiny that awaits. As the soul navigates this new dimension of understanding, it is about to face the consequences of everything it did in life. This is the next step in the journey, and where the true evaluation begins. The story is only starting to unfold, and the coming chapters will bring profound revelations about the soul's destiny. Get ready to discover what lies ahead. Now that the soul finds itself in this state of expansion and freedom, where everything seems within reach, it faces a crucial moment, the judgment of its life. Imagine a vast space where time doesn't exist as we know it, and suddenly all the actions, thoughts, and choices of an entire lifetime are revealed in an instant. According to Jewish mystical traditions, when the soul detaches from the body, it is granted permission to see its entire life flash before its eyes, like a movie. Every moment lived, from small acts to major decisions, appears clearly and in detail. In this judgment, there is no way to hide anything. The soul is confronted with absolute truth. This life review is not just a vague memory or distant feeling. It is an intense and immersive experience. The soul relives every emotion, every decision, every regret and joy, but now with a new understanding, a perspective it never had while confined to the body. It realizes the true consequences of its actions, both good and bad, and understands the impact it had on others and the world. What's most striking is that, according to tradition, the soul does not face this moment alone. It stands before the divine presence, which judges with both justice and mercy. The soul finds itself in a state of deep reflection, where it becomes fully aware of its mistakes and virtues. This judgment is not just punitive, but also revealing. Its purpose is to guide the soul to its final destination, adjusting its path based on what was done in life. Interestingly, modern science has brought to light something that seems to align with this spiritual vision. Studies of post-mortem brain activity suggest that even after clinical death, the part of the brain responsible for memory remains active for some time. Doctors have reported that patients who had near-death experiences described this life review, seeing their most significant moments with surprising clarity. But in Jewish tradition, this vision goes beyond the physical. Although the brain plays a role, the true essence of these memories lies in the soul. It is the soul that carries the complete record of everything lived. This review is not merely to observe, but to evaluate. How will this life be judged? Where will the soul be guided from this point? We are approaching an important crossroads. After reliving its own story, the soul begins to understand what the next step in its journey will be. But don't think it all ends here. This is just the first stage of a process that will determine its eternal destiny. And every decision made, every lesson learned, will influence the path ahead. Get ready to follow how this story continues to unfold as the soul moves forward into the unknown, guided both by its choices and by divine justice. What awaits it next? After the intense judgment, where the soul relived every moment of its life, it enters a new phase. A stage where attachment to the physical world still exerts a strong influence. Yes, even after being freed from the body, the soul has not yet severed all ties with earthly existence. In the first days after death, Jewish tradition teaches that the soul remains connected to the body and to the places that were important to it. The home where it lived, the environment where it built memories, and even the objects that surrounded it still hold significant meaning for this soul. There is a deep emotional bond between the soul and the body, because throughout life, the body was its dwelling, its vehicle in the physical world. Imagine the soul, now free, closely observing what happens to its body. It knows what is being done, feels and perceives everything, but without the limitations of a physical body. During this initial period, the soul frequently visits the home where it lived and stays close to its body. It experiences a mixture of confusion and nostalgia, still attached to the world it knew, but beginning to understand that its journey is leading to something beyond. And this is where the importance of post-death rituals becomes significant. In Jewish tradition, the way the body is treated in the first days is crucial. The soul watches attentively as its body is washed, dressed, and prepared for burial. Every detail matters, because this is a way to respect and honor the life that was lived. If the body is mistreated, as in cremation for example, the soul suffers indescribable spiritual pain, far greater than any physical torment. As the days pass, the soul, still in transition between the physical and spiritual worlds, approaches a special moment. After experiencing the initial confusion and attachment to the body and home, something profound happens. The soul begins to be embraced by those with whom it had a strong connection during life. This reunion, filled with emotion and significance, is one of the most comforting and mysterious experiences it can encounter. Imagine, for a moment, the soul leaving behind the darkness of uncertainty and suddenly encountering familiar figures. It is no longer alone. Jewish tradition teaches that, at the beginning of this journey, the soul is welcomed by other souls it knew and loved during its lifetime. It could be a husband reuniting with his wife, parents embracing their children, grandparents welcoming their grandchildren. These beloved souls come to meet it, forming a sort of welcoming committee to help it cross into this new reality. But there is something even deeper in this reunion. It's not just about relatives or friends. Spiritual mentors, teachers, and even figures the soul admired in life may also appear to guide it. This connection transcends the time and space we know. These souls are no longer bound by physical bodies, yet they still maintain the essence of the relationships they had on Earth. Even without a body, the soul clearly recognizes those who were important to it. This welcoming is not just a source of comfort, but serves an essential function. Since the soul is still confused and in transition, the presence of these familiar figures helps to calm the chaos it feels after leaving the body. It's as if these familiar souls are saying, "It's okay. You are where you need to be. We are here with you." This loving reception also reinforces a truth many wonder about. The bonds we had with those we love do not break with death. On the contrary, they strengthen in ways we can't fully understand while we are alive. Those who are important to us continue to accompany us, even after crossing to the other side. This moment of reunion marks a turning point in the soul's journey. It begins to accept its new reality, and with that, the confusion lessens. What once seemed like an unknown abyss now begins to transform into a path illuminated by memories and love. However, this initial comfort is just one stage. The soul still has a long way to go, and greater challenges lie ahead. What comes after this reunion? How will the soul handle the next level of judgment and evaluation? The journey is far from over, and the light that seemed so welcoming now begins to reveal deeper secrets. Stay tuned, because the soul's story is just beginning to unfold the mysteries it must face in its quest for its final destination. With the emotional reunion with beloved souls, the initial confusion begins to dissipate, but the soul's journey is far from over. Now, it enters a new stage, the process of judgment and spiritual elevation. This is one of the most critical moments in its path, where all its actions, words, and even thoughts start to be weighed and evaluated. In the first 7 days after death, known in Jewish tradition as the Shiva period, the soul is still strongly connected to the physical world. During these days, it visits the home where it lived, stays close to its loved ones, and at the same time undergoes the first stage of judgment. This initial judgment is like a first instance where the soul begins to feel the weight of the choices it made in life. Imagine a cosmic scale where all good and bad deeds are placed on either side. On one side are acts of kindness, honesty, and shared love. On the other are mistakes, failings, and moments of weakness. In this process, everything is taken into account, from grand decisions to small daily actions. And here's the key point: nothing is forgotten. Everything is recorded in the soul, as if engraved into its being. This judgment is not merely a formality, but a crucial step in the soul's journey. It is here that the soul begins to understand what truly matters. It realizes that what remains are the marks left by its deeds, not the material possessions or status it held in life. The soul begins to be elevated or purified based on the merits it acquired throughout its existence. The importance of prayers and rituals performed by the living during these 7 days cannot be underestimated. Every prayer, every act of kindness done in the name of the deceased has the power to ease the judgment and elevate the soul to higher levels of spirituality. The soul feels these prayers as tangible support, a force that helps it ascend during this evaluation process. After the 7th day, the judgment continues in a second instance, which occurs on the 30th day, and again after 1 year. These moments mark phases where the soul gradually detaches from the physical world and draws closer to the spiritual reality. Each stage of this judgment brings a new level of understanding and preparation for the final destination. It's important to note that during this process, the soul is not only judged for what it did, but also for the legacy it left behind. If it inspired others to follow the path of goodness, this adds merits to its elevation. On the other hand, if its actions negatively influenced others, this also weighs on the scale. This process of elevation is, at the same time, a refinement of the soul. It's as if each impurity is being removed, revealing the true essence beneath all the layers accumulated throughout life. But this refinement can be painful, and the soul will still face greater challenges as it progresses. The soul's journey continues, but now it feels the weight of the decisions it made in life and begins to prepare for the next phase, a phase where judgment intensifies and the final destination starts to be revealed. What comes after this process of elevation? What will be the next challenge? Stay tuned, as the soul is about to enter an even deeper and more revealing path. After passing through the initial judgments and beginning to detach from the physical world, the soul enters an even more critical and revealing phase, the moment when the legacy it left behind starts to influence its destiny. Here, it is no longer just the direct actions that weigh on the scale, but the lasting impact that this soul's life had on the world. Imagine this. The soul, now more aware of its new reality, starts to realize that the seeds it planted during its life continue to grow. If those seeds were good, virtuous teachings, examples of kindness, or children who follow a righteous path, they become additional merits that elevate the soul. These merits are not gained immediately. They unfold over time, like the fruits of a tree that continues to provide shade and nourishment long after it was planted. On the other hand, if the soul left behind a legacy of negativity, corruption, or bad examples that led others astray, this also weighs against it. At this point, the impact of those negative influences can diminish its spiritual standing, even after death. The soul is constantly reevaluated, not just for what it did in life, but for what its actions continue to generate, for better or worse. This concept is both powerful and profound. It teaches us that even after death, our lives still speak. Our decisions echo, shaping the world far beyond what we can see. For the soul, this means that judgment is not something fixed and unchangeable. It continues to be revised as the consequences of its actions unfold in the world. Mystical texts explain that this phase of judgment is also an opportunity for the soul to receive additional elevations. If its descendants or people influenced by it perform acts of kindness, pray, or repent in its name, the soul benefits from this. It's as if it receives spiritual credits, ascending to higher levels in its journey. But don't be mistaken, this constant reevaluation also carries an aspect of responsibility. The soul bears the weight not only of its own actions, but of the influences it left in the world. This explains why, on the anniversaries of a person's passing, family and friends continue to hold ceremonies and prayers in their memory. Every positive act can ease the judgment and ensure ongoing elevation. As this phase progresses, the soul begins to understand that its existence did not end with death. On the contrary, it extends across generations, through the teachings passed down and the examples set. This legacy is a living extension of its journey, shaping both its destiny and the world around it. Now, the soul finds itself at a decisive point. It has been judged for its own actions, but now it is also judged for the trail it left behind. This phase, filled with reflections and revelations, prepares the soul to face the next challenge. the final purification, where it will have to deeply confront the errors and merits that still leave marks on its essence. We are approaching the climax of this journey. What happens when the soul enters the process of purification? How does it deal with the remnants of faults and sins that still weigh on it? Stay tuned, as the story is about to reveal the most intense and transformative stages of this spiritual journey. Now we arrive at one of the most intense and feared phases of the soul's journey, the moment of purification. This stage is commonly described as hell, or Gehinnom in Jewish traditions. But it's not a place of physical fire as many imagine. Instead, it is a deeply spiritual experience where the soul faces the consequences of its sins and mistakes with a single purpose: to purify itself, repent, and prepare to reach a higher state. Imagine standing before the Creator, the source of all goodness and purity, and seeing with overwhelming clarity all the wrongs you committed throughout your life. The soul, which now perceives everything with absolute truth, feels a shame so profound that it is compared to a spiritual fire. This fire does not burn the body but consumes the soul with such intense remorse that it is literally purified through it. This process is known as the fire of shame, a pain that is not physical but emotional and spiritual. It's important to understand that this judgment and purification are not purposeless punishments. On the contrary, they serve an essential function: to cleanse the soul of all the stains left by sins, removing impurities and preparing it to draw closer to God with renewed purity. The pain felt by the soul is compared to that deep sense of regret and shame we experience when we realize we've made a serious mistake. But imagine that feeling amplified to the extreme, with full awareness of every fault committed in the presence of a light that reveals every detail. Some souls go through this process for a relatively short period because their sins are minor and are quickly purified. Others, burdened with heavier faults, need more time to rid themselves of their transgressions. However, even the most corrupt soul has a chance to purify itself, except for those who in life became so deeply immersed in wickedness that they are incapable of achieving purification. Tradition teaches that for these souls who strayed to the extreme, the fate is even darker. They are cast into a state of limbo, an existence of complete confusion and isolation, where they cannot even reach the level of purification offered in Gehinnom. They become like wandering souls, disconnected and unable to ascend or redeem themselves. On the other hand, the souls that manage to purify themselves in Gehinnom undergo a powerful transformation. The spiritual suffering they endure is not in vain. It is the key to redemption. After this process, the soul emerges cleansed, relieved of its transgressions, and ready to move forward to the next level of spiritual existence. This fire of shame is, in reality, a form of healing, reconciliation with truth, and liberation from the chains that kept the soul bound to its past errors. Once purified, the soul draws closer to the divine light, ready to receive its spiritual reward. But what happens to these souls after they pass through the process of purification? Where do they go? We are approaching the soul's final destination, where eternal reward and true union with the divine await. Get ready, because the next step will reveal the greater purpose of this entire journey and what it truly means to achieve complete spiritual peace. The story is about to reach its climax. After the intense and painful purification in Gehinnom, the soul finally reaches the destination it longed for throughout its journey: the world of souls. But don't think of this as a common paradise or a physical place that we can imagine. The world of souls is described in Jewish traditions as a plane of existence where there is no more pain, confusion, or judgment. It is a state of pure peace and closeness to God. Imagine being in a place where the soul experiences an indescribable spiritual pleasure far beyond any joy or fulfillment we know in the physical world. This state is called Olam HaNeshamot, the world of souls. There, the soul rests, surrounded by the divine presence, in an environment of light, love, and knowledge. This is the true rest for those who lived according to divine values, who repented for their wrongs, and who, even after death, sought purity and truth. But the world of souls is not the end. In Jewish tradition, it is seen as a stage of preparation for something even greater: the resurrection of the dead. Yes, the soul's journey does not end in eternal separation between body and spirit. One of the pillars of Jewish faith is the belief that, in a future time, all righteous souls will return to their purified bodies in a renewed world. This belief in resurrection is mentioned in prophetic texts, like in the book of Daniel, where it is written that many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, and others to shame and everlasting contempt. On that day, those who lived with righteousness and purity will shine, and their souls will glow like the stars in the sky. In this glorious state, the body and soul will reunite in perfect existence, without the limitations we know. The soul, now purified and elevated, will be able to experience spiritual pleasure in its fullest form, united with the body in a world where there will be no more suffering, death, or sin. This is the final destiny of the righteous, an eternity of direct communion with the Creator in a world transformed by divine light. But what does this mean for us now? How do we live our lives knowing that this is the journey that awaits us? The answer lies in the words of King Solomon: "Let your garments always be white." In other words, live in a way that keeps your soul pure, because what we do here echoes throughout eternity. This story reminds us that despite the challenges and detours, the soul always has the chance to elevate itself, to purify itself, and to reach the light. And that light, in the end, is what the soul desires most: to return to the source from which it came, uniting with the Creator in a state of eternal peace and fulfillment. And so, we conclude this journey of the soul, a journey that began with creation, passed through challenges, judgments, and purifications, and culminates in a state of eternal glory. May this story inspire us to live with purpose, knowing that the spiritual journey is ongoing and that every choice we make here echoes into eternity.